Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership.
Good afternoon, Christeen. How are you today?
I am doing great. How are you doing, Steve?
Super. It's Thursday. We're getting closer and closer to Christmas.
We are. By the time this podcast drops, it's going to be 2025. It's going to be in the new year. And yeah, we're going to be in a completely different place.
Yeah. 2025. Exciting. Today, we're going to be exploring and discussing one of my favorite subjects in business. And the reason it's one of my favorite subjects is because when I started looking at my business in this way, it added so much clarity. It just changed the ease of how I could approach my business. And so what that is the 5 functions of business.
And what are these 5 functions, Steve?
The 5 functions of business are, and I don't even have to look at it because I talk about it so much, marketing, which is the attracting, sales, which is the conversion, deliverables, which is the doing, what are we going to do for people, money, which is the finance function, and then who's going to do it, the people function. And each one of those functions is vital to any business. And what's interesting is whether we're in the landscape business or green industry, like most of the people who are listening to this, or whether we're in the cleaning industry or the construction industry or the accounting industry, each business has all 5 functions in some component. Now, they might be a little bit different, or they might have a little uniqueness, or a restaurant business or movie business, but each business is going to have 5 functions of the business. And when we're talking about each business, they're going to have these 5 functions. And each one of those is going to have a system, whether it's defined and clarified, or undefined or unclarified. There's a system for everything. And it's also going to have measurables, things that are going to be consistent, that are going to happen, that if we measure it, we can manage it. And sometimes we're measuring things, but we don't have a name for it. And we're measuring them in our head, and we're kind of counting, whether it's a loose measurement. But what really separates kind of like, I will say, like a field worker and a manager or a business owner is the measuring and managing of the 5 functions of business.
Yeah, and each one of these these 5 functions, and we've gone into businesses and we've, sat down when we started doing site tours together and going and visiting businesses, and we're like, okay, these are the 5 areas we're going to talk about, right? And it was just on a very basic level. And as in talking about these things, each one of them had a purpose, right? It serves the business in some way. But then there were gaps that we were identifying in these different functions that had a huge impact on the company. So there was some cost associated with, this whole being there. And the whole purpose of going to that business and sitting down and talking about these were to identify like what's going really well and what isn't in these different areas of the 5 functions. And then identifying some gaps, so some opportunities to close those gaps so we could improve, the way that the business was functioning and, who was contributing to that. So just these 5 different areas, I think they have so much potential and opportunity when we start unpacking these and talking about this in a business. You could almost do a podcast on each separate function and really dive deep. But I'm glad that we're sharing this with business owners because you're right. They do exist in every business. And we have things that are established in every function. And then we have gaps in every function. So I'm glad that we're going to dive into this topic today and talk about each one of these.
Yeah, and each function supports the other functions. They don't isolate, and they don't live in isolation in a silo. And for example, for marketing, right, and finance and deliverables, we kind of want to be marketing the highest gross profit margin products or services that we provide, because that's going to give us the highest return on our investment. So financially, we want to do that. We also want to have our most expensive resources, which is usually our labor and our people, producing and delivering our highest gross profit margin work, right? So we want to be marketing and allocating our resources to the items that are going to give us the highest gross profit margin. So knowing what our highest gross profit margin service is right up front helps us to define and, develop our marketing. So sometimes people will develop marketing plans because they want to sell what's easy, but we really want to sell what's going to give us the highest return on our investment, going to support the business in the long run. So each one is going to be connected to the other one, but each one has to have their own, like we were talking earlier today, KPI, which is key performance indicator. And we want to have some measurables. You can make it really complicated, but I would say each one has to have, at least three simple KPIs for each one of these measurables. And so marketing focuses on promoting and attracting people to call your business, to contact you about what you sell. So it's really about enhancing brand visibility and generating demand. So that is not only just with we'll call them cold leads, so people who have never bought from you, but it's also warm leads and existing clients. So renewals, additional services, repurchasing. So a lot of times when I look at businesses' marketing budgets, it's almost 100% to cold leads. But if you look at really long-term existing businesses, about 30% of their budget typically is to warm leads, so they're existing clients, because 80% of your revenue is going to come from existing clients traditionally. There will be some businesses that won't, like insulation businesses. A lot of times, the majority of that revenue is going to come from one-time sales. But in the landscape and lawn care business, even in installation, a lot of that is going to be repeat business. So a certain portion of your marketing should be allocated to existing clients. So that's marketing. So what are some of the KPIs for marketing? How many leads did we produce per dollar spent? So that's two KPIs. How much do we spend on marketing and how many leads did we produce, right? And then you can look at how much did each lead generate per, how much did we bid on that lead? So are the leads are they asking for $1,000 quotes, $2,000 quotes, $10,000 quotes? So we want to look at what is that lead generating as far as the value of the quotes.
Yes. Yeah. And, some other things that I talk to clients about this a lot, is what's your return on investment, right? When it comes to your marketing. So you're looking at what you're spending on your marketing and what revenue it generates. And then that's going to get you your return on investment. So when you're spending on marketing in a business, kind of that sweet spot, and people ask, what should I spend on marketing? It's a 4 to 6% marketing spend, which is healthy. If you're spending above that, there has to be a reason why you're spending above that. And you can't be spending above that for long periods of time. So, you might be trying to just gain awareness in your market, right? You might be trying to really push and enhance that, nurture and education marketing, which is one of the things I love is, I always say, talk to your ideal clients and customers about what you do and why you do it, because it's going to help them understand why they need you or why they want to work with you. So there's that customer engagement part of marketing that not only continues to build that current relationship, but then educates and builds a long-term relationship with new potential clients. So when we're investing money into that, we want to look at what is that return that we're getting on that marketing to make sure that your marketing dollars are giving you your highest value and generating that money in your business.
That is so important, because we want to make sure that we're actually spending money that's going to matter in the business long term. That 4 to 6%, it makes sense. So if we're spending more than 6% for a long period of time, that usually is, there's an issue maybe in deliverables, there's an issue in quality, there's an issue in some other, part of the business. Or if you're really just starting out, like year one or year two, you might be spending 6 to 12%, but that's the launch stage of your business, right? That's the very beginning part of your business. That is a different stage. But once you get past that 2, and you're in that 2 to 5 year, that you should be dialing back that marketing. And then if you're in, past 5 years, you're definitely in that 4 to 6%, and you should keep an eye on that. And also, once you get to that, 3 to 5 years, you should start begin to get those referrals and renewals from customers that you've been working with.
Right. And you could also be having an issue if you find that you're spending more than that 6%, and you're not getting that return on investment that you're looking for. There could be a problem with your branding, right? So there could be an issue to where people are just not connecting with your message or what you're delivering, or understanding, where the value is. So that's another area to look at. That's a possible, or potential gap, is to where you don't have all of your strategies, delivering for you at the highest level when it comes to your marketing. So you want to make sure your branding is on point, your messaging is on point, and that your ideal customers, the people that you want to serve, they understand what it is that you're doing, the value that you're bringing to the table, and it's very clear and simple. So that's another area to look at with your marketing. If you're not getting that ROI, it could be because your branding isn't, ironed out enough and clear.
And branding can be as simple as making sure that your trucks, they don't have to have fancy wraps, but just making sure that they're lettered, their logo, the numbers are easy to read, your website's on your truck. You have a website. You don't have to have the fanciest website, but at least a basic website that has the information on how to get, in touch with you and how to purchase the services, maybe some photos of the work that you do and who you are and where the areas that you work in. And really 60% of landscape business comes off of Google My Business profiles or Google Business pages. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to your Google Business profile and make sure that your phone number's on there, that it's up to date. And if you are going to post photos on your Google Business profile, make sure that there's photos of your trucks in there. If you just post a picture of a patio with no branding in it, people just see a patio. They don't know you did it, or how they're supposed to respond, or who they're supposed to respond to. So put your team in there with the logo shirts or truck or job site sign or something. 85% of all the photos that you're posting should have some branding in it to represent your company. And the more branding you can get in your local market, because most landscaping, is not done more than a 30-mile radius, right? So you want to show up in your community as many times and as many places as you can. So job site signs, posting signs when you do your work, your truck, your trailers, any kind of jackets, T-shirts, work shirts, anything that you can post your logo, lettering, get it out there, and make sure that that's a way to do it. Referrals is a great way, giving people cards and saying, hey, if you like the work that we did, you sounded like you're very happy, could you post a review? And I'm going to give you 5 cards. If you run into anybody, could you introduce us to them? Sometimes people will introduce you, but they won't give you a referral, which is it's a funny way. Yeah, I'll introduce you to someone, but I won't give you a referral. It's an interesting way. There's a little stigma to referral sometimes, but you want to get your name out. So make sure that you have business cards. I'm a huge fan of joining Chamber of Commerce's because that's the local community business circle. And you're not going to walk into your first chamber meeting and people are not going to hover around you and buy all the kinds of businesses from your services. You have to show up and maybe you join a committee and you do some local stuff in your community, the community you happen to live and work in, by the way. And, you show up year after year, you become the person and you get referrals and you get work. It's a great way because that's what landscape and businesses are usually. They live and work in the community of the chamber. So I'm a huge fan of that. And I will share many times when businesses are struggling, especially small businesses, and they join the chamber and they start getting involved, that community will rally around that business.
Yeah, definitely leveraging, who in your community, getting the word out there. And then the other thing that I like that you have, Steve, in your business, and we've talked to, some people in our coaching programs and other companies about this, is you have a really great referral program in your company to where you've created the space for your biggest fans to show up and say, hey, use this company in our community. They're the best, and they get something for it. So I like your referral program. It's very simple and it's a cheaper way of marketing even.
Oh, the ROI is crazy. So if someone refers us and we get a customer, we send a $50 check if it's a lawn care program. And if they do it the second time, they get another $50 check and a really big box of chocolates from a local Connecticut chocolatier. And that second box of chocolate means way more than the $50. I don't want to give my customers a job. In other words, I don't want to give them a gift certificate to go out to eat or a restaurant, because now they either got to get a babysitter or they have to go somewhere and do something. They go out to eat and spend more money on top of that. They can spend that $50 check wherever they want and share the chocolate or eat it all themselves. But that box of chocolate creates a conversation. So we get about 40% of our customers from referral, which is about 3 times higher than the national average in lawn care businesses. So that $50 works. Now I will share, I've shared that $50 check referral tip with probably 50 or 60 lawn care companies. Very few will do it. They've given away gift cards. They've given away McDonald's gift certificates, restaurant gift certificates, all kinds of things. And they'll come back to me and tell me how my referral program doesn't work. And I'll ask them, did you cut the check? They're like, no, I did this other thing. And I'm like, okay, try cutting checks. They're like, I did $25 and it didn't work. Okay, try 50 or try 100. Because if you can pick up new customers for $50, I'll write a $100 check for a new customer. Because on average, it costs me $250 to get a new lawn care customer. So I will sit in my office all day signing $100 checks to pick up, our average lawn care customer is between $1,000 and $1,500. I will write you checks all day for $100 for new customers. So sometimes we can be a little frugal. We're thinking we're saving $25, but we don't want to be tripping over, pennies to save, saving pennies and losing dollars, right? We don't want to be doing that to ourselves. So, don't be frugal when we can be, wealthy.
Yeah, stepping over dollars to pick up pennies.
Yeah,
yep.
you know what?
Do not
Yeah,
want to do that in business.
Yeah. Stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, right? That's what I meant. Yeah, it's so frustrating just to say it because I see people do it over and over again. It's like, just spend the $100 because, if that customer is $1,300 and your average customer is with you for 5 years, right? So, you just $6,500 and you paid $100 for it or $50 and you're trying to get away by paying $25. Come on, let's just, it's a no brainer, right? Pay the $100. I pay $200. I typically pay $250 if I'm doing the regular marketing. So the referral it's a win-win. Absolutely. And the same thing with the chocolate. So if they get the 2 referrals in a year, they get the chocolate and they get the $50 checks. So people love that.
Very nice.
All right. Sales. Sales is a wonderful thing, right? What are you tracking in sales, right? Sales is converting. So we're converting the attraction part of marketing. They call this up. Now we're going to convert them from the attraction into a close. We're going to convert them from not being a customer to a customer, or even they could be a customer, but now they're going to make a repurchase, right? So some of the KPIs are how many sales calls did we go on? How many did we close? What is our average sale? So those are really important. So you can track it like I went on 100 sales appointments and I sold 50. So my close ratio is 50%. And what's my average sale? So we want to track average sale because we want to see, is it going up? Is it going down? And we want to track average sale by service. So average sale by lawn care, average sale by hardscape, average sale by planting. And that way you can see, you know what you're selling. And also gross profit margin by those sales. So you're like, okay, I need to sell, like, I can't sell a $3,000 hardscape job, right? It's just the sale's too small. So how, if I know that I can't make enough money on that job to make it worth it, to bring a dump truck and an excavator there. So I know I have to have a $10,000 to $15,000 job for a hardscape. Mm-hmm. So when I go there, I have to make sure I'm selling a $10,000 or $15,000 landscape. But let's back it up. All my marketing has to support selling $10,000 to $15,000 and up on the hardscape. So if I'm going to do a picture or any kind of hardscaping ad or for marketing, it has to show, ads and marketing that support a $10,000 to $15,000 and up hardscape. So that's where these start to jump fences, these functions. So you have to track what you're selling, how much you're selling, and how often you close and how much you close.
Yeah. And it's also important, to when you are putting some marketing out there, this could be a good opportunity. Let your potential leads know where they start, right? So if you don't have the opportunity to do like a small project, let them know we don't do small projects. We do projects that start at this and up. And that typically is something that looks like this. So that's some good marketing that then supports that sales process. You're going to be spending less time on the phone or going to job sites or potential sites with customers that aren't going to buy from you if you tell them, this is what we do and this is what our starting point looks like. So you're using your marketing piece to filter out those waste of time leads because they're not your ideal customer or they don't fall in that service that you offer, that you need to offer it at. So really looking at, am I spending the amount of time on sales that I need to, and how can I improve, that time? And by improving that time, we're spending less time talking to higher qualified customers. And we're using our marketing for that filter to say, this is where we start. This is what a basic project looks like at starting. This is what a basic service looks like at starting. So then you're not wasting that time talking to a lead that isn't qualified. You're going to be spending time talking to a lead that's qualified and have a higher potential of closing that lead at the minimum price that you need to close them at.
Yeah, and that it's so important. So you want to deal with people that know kind of what the costs are up ahead, right? So if they don't know, if you go on a sales call and they're like, oh, we had no idea that a patio was 25 to 30 grand. We call them DKs. They don't know, right? And that's our job. We better let them know ahead of time before we drive all the way out there. And that was a mistake that I made early on in my career where I would spend time with DKs. They just don't know people. And so we start educating them on the website, what to expect, how much a project like this costs. And so one of the big things is, how do we get the budget? So people say, well, what's the budget? And nobody will give you their budget, or it's kind of one of those awkward questions. What's your budget? Yeah. So asking a simple question of, so what do you think a project like this costs? Is the same kind of question as what's your budget, without asking what's your budget. What do you think a project like this costs? And, people will say, I have no idea, or they'll give you some number. And then, one of the things, whatever they say, if it's really high or really low, or they don't know, be ready to just say, okay, but don't go, that's stupid. You can't do that for $5,000. So you don't want to insult them in any way, regardless of what they say. Or you didn't know? Why you call me? You didn't know? Why? Yeah, didn't you talk to somebody? So you just want to say, oh, you don't know? Okay, well, that's great to know that you didn't know. So let's start. We can start there. We can educate. Or $5,000. Okay, well, tell me a little bit about that, right? And then so that's where the selling starts to happen. But you want to educate the people, and the same thing with the lawn care. So if you're getting calls all the time and they're shoppers, that means your marketing or your pre-selling needs to be adjusted, right? We want to make sure that we're attracting the right people, but also we want to do some qualifying on the before we get there.
Yeah. And also, I would add to this in the sales process, right? There's some things that can be automated, and then there's some things that need that human touch. So looking at what are those things that in your company, based off of the brand and the services you provide, how much bringing that lead in can be automated, and then how much do you actually need to make connection? And one of the things that we've talked about before, Steve, is in the sales process is to actually, meet the person, face-to-face contact. One of the things that is important that you've shared in the past is looking at what project they're working on, and is there a reason for it, right? Like, why do they want their backyard landscaping done? Why do they want their front yard landscaping done? What does that look like for them? And what does that mean? And typically, there's people who buy on a want, and then there's people who buy on a need, and then there's that combination of both. And a lot of times there's something that they're looking for to be done. So there's some sort of emotional connection on why they want their backyard done or why they want their landscaping done in a certain way. Maybe it's something that we bought this house 10 years ago. And, my husband and I we've always wanted a nice, outdoor living space or a sitting space where we can enjoy nature. And we haven't had that. So a long-term goal, right? There's emotion attached there. You've shared before, like a wedding, like my daughter's going to have a wedding here. So what's the emotion around that? And what's the need? And, what's the outcome they're looking for? What do they want to experience? So I think there's value in the sales process of making that connection, and also understanding and hearing them when they're sharing that emotional need and want for them spending that money. There's a lot of value in the sales process of connecting with that.
Yeah, making it connecting to what emotions driving this purchase. Because they probably don't need the landscape. Sometimes people do, but most of the time people are buying it because it's fulfilling a need. And the other thing with this sales is develop your system. Because if you're already selling, you already have a system. Start writing it down. Because if you want to grow and expand or scale your business, have your system. But the other thing, even if you do not want to grow and scale your business, you always want to be the salesperson. Write out your system and see if there's a way to improve it. That's how I really improved my selling. Was I started writing it out. What do I do? What do I do after that? What do I do after this? And it was like, okay, I need to ask. I can start asking for the sale earlier, right? I can start doing test closes. I can start having my paperwork ready, and I can do one-step closes, right? And then I don't have to have another meeting. And then I found out, well, if I can't do a one-step close, make the appointment for the next meeting at the first meeting. Mm-hmm. And then they know when I'm coming back. I know when I have to have my stuff ready. And my close ratio went up another 15% when I started making the second appointment at the first appointment. So that was something that I learned just by writing my sales system out. And we have it on our website, so our customers know this is our sales process for landscaping. This is our sales process for lawn care too. So they know what to expect. They can see that right on our website. They're going to call. This is what's going to happen. This is the process. So there's no surprises for them. So develop and look at your system. Come up with a couple KPIs, things you're going to track. That way you can just improve them, even if you're the person that's always going to do it. Get it out of your head, get it on paper. You can always be a better salesperson for yourself, and your customers. And the other thing I would say, and it's probably the most like common question, what should your closing ratios be? Just falling out of bed and probably not shaving or brushing your teeth and just going on sales, you should be about 30%.
So no trying at all.
Right. Not trying. So about 30%, just showing up and giving out prices. Emailing is lower than that though, actually. So emailing drops the closing ratio down to about 25%. So if you're a horrible salesperson and you show up, you should be about 30%. If you're emailing, you're about 25%. A decent salesperson is going to be about 45%. A good salesperson is going to be about 55%. And an excellent salesperson is going to be about 65%. Anything above 65%, you're too cheap. So if anybody's closing at 85 or 95%, your prices are too cheap. People love you. Yes, they do like you and you are a good salesperson, but you're still too cheap. You could totally raise your prices because people are buying because they do like you, but they would pay a lot more. And the psychology of pricing is very interesting. And this is like scientific. This is not my opinion. The highest endorphin rush is when people pay a lot for products and when they get a total bargain. So if you're the middle of the road or the value deal, it's the least endorphin rush for people. So that's why people love to spend a lot of money on like high quality and feel they're getting a really high quality product and there's a lot of value to it, or an absolute bargain. And also that's where most of the referrals are done. People love to tell people when they get a bargain and they love to brag about a high quality product. People will not, this is a good value product. That is the least referred products in any industry, actually. So, pricing yourself at the top of the market or the bottom of the market is going to get you more referrals, and you're going to have higher satisfied, customers. In that middle road it could be the valley of death, actually.
Yeah.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro.
Yeah.
That's why there's Walmart and Mercedes-Benz, right? Or, bargain stores and the high-end stores are still around. And a lot of these medium, kind of department stores, there's so few less. It's either department, like blowout kind of stores or high-end.
Yeah. All right. So our next area is deliverables, and the purpose of deliverables, right? It's our production and delivery in the company. So we want to ensure that our products and services that we're actually selling, one, they get delivered, right? And they get delivered as we expect them to get delivered, and they get delivered the way that the customer expects them to get delivered. So there's a couple sides of this. One, it's the timeline, and then it's, did we meet our expectations for our customer, and were the expectations, met that how our team is supposed to do it. So deliverables, this is a very important area because it ties back to reoccurring sales, right? If somebody's going to come back and say, hey, I want to buy more, we have to have the deliverables happen at a high level to where the customer wants to buy more. And then it ties back, to that marketing piece, because if the customer is satisfied and they're happy, they are going to go market for you, whether it's on Google or they're, like Steve is talking about just now, like bragging to their friends about, hey, yes, look at my outdoor patio. It's just beautiful. You want one too? Let me introduce you to my guy. Like, I have someone. Let me introduce you, to this company that I use. They're just amazing. So that's another high that I've seen, clients have, where they're like, I know someone and you're going to absolutely love them. And if you love the work they did for me, I'd love for you to work for them.
Yeah. And so deliverables are super important. And some of the things we want to track on deliverables is estimated versus actual. So that could in our resources, right? So that could be labor and it could be materials. So the resources that we're putting into that job. So if you're doing patios, let's say it's a 400-hour job. How close did we come to the 400 hours of labor? How close did we come to how much material that we put into that? So we want to be tracking that. And also, did they follow the plans, right? Did that meet the expectations of the designer? Did it meet the expectations of the client? So all of those things. And also, did we have the resources and tools to produce that job? So a lot of times, especially you see this in landscape, designers will, do these designs because it's really cool to draw it, but we don't always have the resources and tools to produce that. So the jobs go over hours. It doesn't end up looking like the client was promised, because it's the first time we've ever used this type of paver or this type of stone or product. And they didn't know how to cut it right or whatever it was. And so we want to make sure that it's meeting the expectation and the skill set of everybody involved, right? Expectation of the client and the skill set of the crew. So, and you can check that off. So if every job is running into like issues, we want to what issues are reoccurring? Is it a trend or is it an event? And like for pavers, we only use Techo block pavers and bluestone. And for steps, we pretty much only use granite steps that are pre-cut. So we don't build the block steps even at a Techo block, because we know we can set granite steps. We give a 10,000 year warranty on the granite, because they will never break or chip, and there's no glue, so there's nothing to come apart. So we know my guys can deliver on that, and we can meet the client's expectation on what those steps are going to hold up. They're never going to have a problem with those. So the deliverables are, something you can track your own KPIs, but you definitely want to look at estimated versus actual hours, resources, client expectations. If you meet them, you'll get the referrals. If you don't meet the client expectations, it's a tough road.
Yeah. And the other thing I just want to touch on real quick is deliverables. And I bring this up because I find in so many businesses that I talk to that they are not tracking their capacity. And when I'm talking about capacity, it's how many man hours or even, what machinery you have to utilize in that year. And then how much have you actually sold? So it's going to really show you where your gap is in filling out the team that you have. So filling out that work schedule or that project management schedule of deliverables, on a week to week or month to month basis, and plan this out. So we've met with companies before, and I'm talking, it's everybody, accounting companies, right? You think like, oh, they know their numbers down to a T. I find this a lot. That accountants are not going, oh, I have this many hours to deliver. I have this much team to deliver that in. And, and we're doing it within the amount of time. Most companies do not do that. I don't care what company you can dream up, that would utilize this information. Most of them are not doing that. So with your deliverables, again, it's really important to understand how much do I have to deliver? How much have I sold? And then how much man hours or equipment do I need to deliver this? And what do I have? So it's that both sides of the coin. And that's where you could really lose profit if there's a gap in that. So if there is a gap there, it would be a good time to set down. This would be a high value gap to close, is understanding what you have and what you have to deliver. So what did you sell, and making sure it's happening in that amount of time.
So in law and application, right? So we call it man days. So overall, the average lawn tech for us treats 200,000 feet a day. So we know a man day is 200,000 feet. So how much can 10 techs treat, right? So if 10 techs can do, that'll be 2 million feet a day. So in 30 days, that's 60 million feet. So 30 days, though, is a month and a half, which is a 6-week cycle. So if you're on a 6-week cycle, it would take 10 techs at 200,000 feet a day, doing 2 million feet a day, to do 60 million feet. Or you can scale that back. Just know that a man day is 200,000 feet. And then if you have 4 techs, that's 800,000 feet a day. What capacity can you do? Now, do you have to stretch it out to 8-week rounds? In reality, that 6-week round might be 8 weeks, because you have rain days, you have wind days, you have employees calling out for whatever reasons. But that's a way to look at it. How much is that tech day worth? Like 200,000 feet. And in 8 weeks 8 weeks would be, there's 20 working days in a month. So that's 40 days. So that would be 8 weeks. So that's another way to break out for lawn techs, to figure out your capacity.
Excellent.
To figure out how many techs do I need? How many square feet do I have? And then do the math from there. All right. Next is money and financial.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite subjects when it comes.
That's why you can lead on this. And what's a system we could use, I wonder?
Yeah. So, what's the purpose of looking at this area, right? The financial management, the money in the business, right? This function, it really oversees the financial health of the business, right? That's the whole function of this. There is a lot to it. So you could tie budgeting into this, really making sure that you got your numbers dialed in, strategic planning, some of the things we were just talking about, capacity, right? Dollars sold, dollars delivered. Is it done on time? And, how does it serve the business is when we're looking at the financial management, we want to ensure we're in business for what? We're in business to turn a profit, right? We're not in business to bleed money. We're not in business just to survive. We're in business to provide jobs. We're in business to serve our community, and we're in business to turn a profit. So we want to make sure that we're getting the return on investment by tracking our numbers, knowing our numbers, and making sure that those numbers produce that high-end KPI that we're looking for this area, which is gross profit margin and net profit margin. So those are the 2 KPIs that I would say definitely track when you're looking at money in your business, is that gross profit margin and that net profit margin in your company. That's going to tell you if something's wrong. It's going to tell you if something's off somewhere else, because if you're not making the margins that you need to, then we have a problem.
And I think that the other KPI you want to track is owner's pay. Because one of the conversations that I frequently run into is, I'll get on a call with someone, and they're like, I'll say, okay, what's your biggest challenge? What's your goal? I want to double my business. I'll say, okay, so tell me more about that. And they'll go on and on. I'll say, okay, so what do you really want to do? I want to double my business. I'll be like, okay, so you want twice, you're already having a hard time hiring employees. Yes. And you want twice as many employees and twice as many clients. And they're like, well, or do you want more income, personal income? They're like, well, I really need more personal income. I said, all right, how much do you need? And they'll be like, I need 30 to 50,000 more. I said, okay, so you got a family, this and that. So you need 30 to 50,000 more income. So what if we got your pricing right What if you started getting paid for every man hour at the right amount, and you started doing work? All the work that you did had the right gross profit margin, and we didn't have to add another crew or hire more people. How's that sound? And then silence. We can do that? Yes, we can do that. And matter of fact, we worked with a client in Florida. That's exactly. He has actually less employees, and he had a higher gross profit margin, way higher net. I think 5x his net and his income than last year, just by getting his gross profit margin right and his net right. And he was doing work that was really not even break even. And so once we got all that in line, it was, I had the same experience, 23 years ago. If you read Profit First for Lawn Care Landscape Businesses, I was just about broke, ready to hide out in Alaska. And it was because I was basically not charging enough. I was doing things basically for free, couldn't pay myself. And we did less revenue by $300,000 next year, and I made 7x income. So it's really about getting your numbers right. And those numbers are getting your gross profit margin, your net margin, so you can get paid and the business is healthy. So it's not about doubling the size of the business. It's about charging the right numbers up front for what you're doing right now.
Yeah. And it's also spending the right amount of cash in the different areas of the business. So we see a lot of overspend that's happening, like overspend on payroll because the labor isn't right, or they have too much administrative staff in operations, overpay on operating expenses or marketing because they're not looking at what their return on investment is with their marketing, or they're not looking at what they're spending, in the business when it comes to the day-to-day operations. So again, this is an area where there's a lot of opportunity. If you're struggling with that cash flow, or it's just not where you want it to be, I would suggest Profit First is a really great system. As Steve shared in the book, the Profit First for Lawn Care and Landscape Businesses book. So we introduce the Profit First system, right out the gate, where we're talking about, hey, this is where you're supposed to be on your revenue size and tier, with some healthy spends in some very basic areas of the business. And then as you journey through this book, I go into a deeper level of the scalable growth business model and unpack what percentages you need to spend in more detailed areas based off of your business model if you want to be healthy, why you scale and grow your business. So there's some basic methodologies and some advanced ones that include some great strategies. So if you're looking at what can I improve, or where are there areas of opportunity, or what do I not know, I think picking up that book and getting started there is a great place for you to look.
Yeah. And, if you're going to have systems in your business, you need a cash system, right? We have systems in our lives, systems in our business. And then it always surprises me that people resist having a system for their cash. It's the one thing the business needs the most, right? It's the air in the business. It's the air in our lungs. It's the air in our business. So having a system for our cash is vital. And Profit First is a really good system for that. It's simple, but not easy. But if you can do it, you will literally be ahead of 95% of all other businesses that struggle to manage cash. All right. Next is everyone's favorite topic in small business. The people, like the most frustrating part of small business. Oh, it would be easy if I didn't have to deal with people, customers, or employees, right? Business would be easy if we didn't have to deal with those. That's what I've heard. I'm a people person, so I typically don't feel that way. But many people, especially if you lead with executing and you really want to do stuff and get your job done and go out and create and build and just do awesome work, people can be so frustrating. So people.
Yeah. And, so we need people to produce in our business, right? We need to recruit the people that we want to work with, that has the talents and skills that we're looking for. And then once we get these good people and we work so hard to get them, we want to be able to retain them. That's the purpose. So there's really problems in all of those areas, right? Just in this function of business, there's usually issues with recruitment, there's issues with development, and there's issues with retaining people. So when we're not hiring the right people, right? We hire the wrong people. Or if we do hire the right people, we're not spending time developing them and bringing them on in our company. So then we lose those people. So, and we could also lose people because we might have that development program, but then we don't have a good culture everywhere because, you know, there's exceptions being made or there's things happening and we're not enforcing the policies and the values of the business. So then those people will leave. So there's several things in this area that can happen in any business that we need to be aware of, and we have the opportunity to improve.
So hiring, then after we hire, we have to train them, and training is more than in 1 hour. It's perpetual, and then we have to retain them. And then we have to create with them, right? We have to have them involved in the business, creating a place they want to work and they want to stay and they want to be a part at. And kind of getting back to that chamber of commerce where it's a small community, it's where you live and work. These people live and work in that same community. You know, it's the people that in this, you know, community, they're coming to work for you. So what your reputation in that community is very important. You know, so if you're having a difficult time hiring people, you really have to look at, what's my reputation in this community? You know, being frugal in hiring cheap, usually will cost way more than the few dollars you're going to save. I have found over the years, it's way cheaper to spend the money to have really good hires than to save a few bucks an hour and get the bargain basement people that's just a churn and burn. And I think the statistics show it costs between a year to year and a half salary to replace somebody. So, you know, hiring, you have to have a recruiting, just even attracting them, right? You have to have a system. How do we even attract the right people? That in itself is a whole system. And then what are the interview questions? How do we hire them? And then onboarding, according to Joey Coleman, Never Lose an Employee Again, onboarding can be up to 80% of why people stay. So onboarding, according to Joey Coleman, should take about a year. It's not a 1 day or a half a day process. It should be about a year long. And then you have to train the people. So you have to train them not only technically, right? Some people don't know how to use a shovel anymore. No one showed them how to, you know, they played video games and they don't know how to back a truck up or a trailer or use a shovel or skid steer. So there's a lot more training for years. Math, how to operate things. So there's a system for training, right? And like, I'm a landscaper. Like, I build stuff. I got to do all this people stuff. It's a lot of work. You know, you probably have to get some help. I had to get help with this. And then retaining people, right? So why do they stay? And the best way to find out why people stay is ask them. Like, why do you stay at jobs? Why would you stay here? What matters to you most? You know, what is it? Opportunities? Is it just pay? What is it? And you want a nice place to work. So find out and ask, because otherwise you'll just be guessing. And it could be regional. And I would imagine that there is some regionality involved as to why people stay at different places.
Yeah, and some of the KPIs, you know, when it comes to people, right, one is absenteeism. And when I say absenteeism, tracking that's the number of days that people have called off that isn't planned. So that's what you're tracking. That's going to tell you the level of engagement that's going on. Yes, there are times where people are sick, right? But if they're continuously calling off or excuses coming in, you want to look at the level of absenteeism. Another one that you can track for employees is, I just had it and I totally lost it. So we want the absenteeism, and then we can track as well as their level of engagement with their divisional KPIs. So if you have a team member and you say, hey, your key performance indicator is X, and if they're not consistently hitting that, or getting close to it or above it, then you know that there's an issue with employee engagement there, right? So that's really important to track as well. Is, are they hitting their KPIs that they're assigned just for their role in this company, which would contribute to the overall gross profit margin, the deliverables, things like that, whatever it is. So that's a really good indicator. If your person is meeting your strategic goals or helping the team meet those strategic goals, that's a good indicator that they're engaged in the company.
Yeah, you can track their breakage, right? Are they hitting their KPI? Are they, if it's a lawn tech, is he hitting his 200,000 feet a day on average, right? If they're never hitting, some days if they have 34 stops and they're all 3,000s, they're not going to hit it. Maybe it's a revenue goal, but are they, and that's acceptable, but are they, is it a trend or an event if they're not hitting their revenue goals or their production rate goals or the absenteeism? You want to track the turnover as a company.
The
Is it
retention
higher than the national average? Is it higher than the regional average? Because you could have regional averages also in companies with companies also. So look at your turnover. How many people are you losing each year? How many people do you have to hire?
Yeah.
And the other one is create. And that's an interesting one because when I put it on my team, more so the middle and upper managers of, hey, you need to create a place that you want to work at. Like you need to create systems. You need to create a culture here. What does that look like for you? What do you want? Why do you want? You have an opportunity to create a business that you want to work at for the next 20 years. What does that look like? You walk in tomorrow. What does it look like? You walk in next year. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's the language that's being used? What have you learned over the, 10 years from now, you show up, now you're telling me what you learned and who you've become. Tell me about it. Mm-hmm. So, and that's new to people. They will be like, what? No, you tell me what to do. You tell me. And I'm like, no. This is your life. You're going to be working here for 20 years. You tell me. You tell me what it's going to look like. And so that takes a little bit of time to get used to for people. And that is an opportunity they've never been exposed to. But it takes the onus off the owner and it puts that back on to the people that are going to be working here in my company for 20 plus years. Hey, create somewhere you want to work. I've created a place I want to work. This is where I want to work in my company. It looks like I want to work, but it might not look like exactly where you want to work. So create a space you want to work. So that's that recruit, train, retain, also create, and sometimes they bring stuff that far exceeds any expectation I ever had. So they're always usually 90% of the time, they're making it better. They're never lowering the bar.
Yeah. And when it comes to, retaining employees, I have to say that it's on us, right? As the business owner or the manager, is we need to set them up for success. It doesn't mean that we have to create their success or make them successful, right? But if we create a success path for them and what that looks like, then we know that on our end, we're doing our job as leaders. And one of the things that, employees, they want to feel seen, they want to feel heard, and they want to feel supported. So think about that when you're creating your onboarding processes. How can you, while you're onboarding somebody, and we have an onboarding process that, it's the first year and beyond, right? And I designed this years ago to where it's like we have check-ins, we ask questions, all these things. And what it's relating to is making sure that the new team member that we're bringing on board in relation to their role and their part in the company. Do they feel seen? Do they feel heard? And do they feel supported? So think about that when creating your onboarding process and what that looks like in your company. And that's going to help you with your retention rate for your employees.
Yeah, the one-on-ones are crucial. Doesn't really go over the job. It's just really a check-in with the person on a personal level, share win and success. We start the meeting with, where are you on the choice map? Then share win and success, a challenge that they're going over. It could be personal or at work. What are they curious about? So it's not about this job or that job or their production rate or anything like that. It's more check in with them personally, and is there something we need to support them, or what's up with them, and how's their life going? So we typically do those every 2 to 3 weeks. We were doing them more often, but they did get a little redundant. We have changed some of the questions. We did start using some of the Gallup Clifton Strengths questions and some of the cards. So we're still changing some things. So that's the other thing. Like, instead of asking everybody the same questions, now we're at the point where, what questions work for you? What questions do you need to be asked? So that's what we're working on for 2025. And you're like, what do you want to share that would be helpful?
Great. All right.
All right.
So these are the 5 functions, which everyone is, as Steve shared, it's coordinated, right? They don't live in silos. And there's lots of opportunity for addressing these potential gaps, like every company, like as we continue to scale and grow, we're going to identify gaps. A $1 million company does not function the same as a $5 million company, as a 10 million, 20, 30, and so on. So these gaps are going to continue to come up as we scale and grow in our business.
Yeah, and having that scalable growth business model in Chapter 8, it shows you where you should be, what your spends should be, and that definitely will help you to understand, what you should be looking forward to in the gaps, and what to watch out for, because the growth can happen pretty quickly in the jumps. It doesn't always come at 5%. Sometimes you can have a 15 to 20% growth rate. And next thing you know, you're in the next category.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for tuning into our episode today. And I hope that you found this discussion insightful, and that you're going to look at these 5 functions in business and find some opportunity. You are welcome to contact us and suggest a topic if there's something you would like us to talk about. I invite you to do that. We will share a link of that in the show notes. And also, I ask, if you like our podcast and the content, if you know someone it might help, please share this with them and subscribe yourself. And we will see you on our next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.